that it's based on a particular religious experience, particularly the fear of hell. And I think other people, at least with that part, their fear of hell can identify with that. Other people who are deconstructing, can identify with the fear of hell being maybe the basis of their disillusionment with Christianity. Point being, my disillusion with Christianity is psychological, emotional, traumatic, not intellectual.
Sure. Yeah, I think a lot of people, even as like my disagreement with Christianity came out of intellectual, most of them would say it's not. And as I got more distance, I'm like, yeah, there's probably some truth to that. Like, church planning was hard. And fundraising for your salary is hard. And, you kind of hear these promises, not only like, you won't go to hell, but, God will provide. And then you're like, well, I can't pay rent. And I thought Jesus was going to provide because he called me to church plant. So I'm sure there was some emotional stuff for me that led to my deconversion.
And God will provide unless the Romans want to cut your head off for doing evangelism?
Sure, yeah. I mean,
God has a wonderful plan for your life.
Yeah, I mean,
off with your head.
Jesus had no home, right?
Right.
So, there's that.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. So, and I also don't think deconstructing is necessarily leads to deconversion.
Right.
I think when you say deconstructed, just for, I think, our Christian listeners, you don't mean that you've thrown the baby out with the bathwater or even left the faith. You're saying like, I had this particular experience. It led to some beliefs that I no longer have them because I looked at those beliefs and decided that I wanted to root my faith not necessarily in the fear of hell, but in the fact that perfect love drives out fear.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't want to be identified with my trauma.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense.
So that brings up the question of, well, okay, Matt, like there's your story. Now we got your background. We have an understanding of, and maybe some sympathy with why you feel the way you feel, why you said some of the things you said in episode 3 about the not needing the Bible to be historical, and some stuff that sounds, super hetero-orthodox. And I think that there are people listening to our podcast who listened to episode 3 and 4.
No, I haven't listened to 4 yet. It's not released.
Oh, 4's not released yet. We recorded it and didn't release it. There's some people who listened to episode 3 and thought, what category does Matt belong in?
Yeah.
What kind of... If he's not fundamentalist, if he's not reformed, if he doesn't consider himself progressive, if he doesn't consider himself having deconstructed, like what kind of Christian is Matt?
Right.
And I don't know how to answer that in any terse, straightforward way.
Yeah, people are trying to put you in boxes, or at least check boxes, and you're like,
Yeah, I thought about that this morning. I was thinking about that, and my instinct to people wanting to box me in is obviously like retreat at first, and a little bit of just like repugnance is a strong word. I don't mean that. Like I leaning back from it. Like don't label me. Just hear what I have to say. Like what I have to say is who I am, and that's what matters. Yeah. And then I realized that they weren't asking about me, but they were really asking a question about their own theology, and I think actually they're asking a good question because they want a theological context to put me in order to understand what my presuppositions are, what my biases are, what the place that I'm coming from, which from a intellectual standpoint is totally reasonable. I don't actually think they're trying to box me in personally.
Yeah, I guess when I say boxed in, I don't think they're, for the most part, at least the messages I got and some of the Facebook interactions and emails, it seems they're generally curious where you fit on the spectrum instead of being like, because like words have a meaning depending on where you are, right? So you have like, if someone like John Piper were to say, in the end, love wins, sort of what he's talking about coming from a Calvinist perspective is God is love and he ultimately triumphs at the end of the day. Where if you have someone like Rob Bell, who's progressive and maybe not even a Christian anymore, saying love wins, he's saying like all lifestyles are accepted regardless of what the Bible says and everyone's getting to heaven and, it sort of doesn't matter how you live here. So I think in that sense, like figuring out where you are on the spectrum allows them to understand what you're saying in certain contexts, and myself as well. Yeah, no, not at all.
No, I agree. I'm just trying to answer.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to plot the point. Maybe this is the best way to say it. I currently pastor a non-denominational church that is basically Baptist. If you ever see the label non-denominational, there's really no such thing. It either means that they're Pentecostals or they're Baptists.
Yeah,
it's one of those two things. And we don't speak in tongues, so we're Baptists. We're an independent church. We do congregational church government. We baptize only believers, and I hold all of those things with a loose hand. So while I'm coming from the Baptist perspective, I have affinity for liturgy. I don't find the idea of transubstantiation or consubstantiation, either one, I don't find to be problematic. Personally, I hold the consubstantiation, right? I don't find...
Do you want to just quickly unpack those terms for maybe people on my side of the fence?
So Catholics believe that the Mass with the wine and the wafer, or in the Baptist circles, it would be the grape juice and the bread, or others just bread and wine, communion. The Catholic belief is that those things become when the priest blesses them, those elements become the real blood and body of Jesus.
Yeah, like trans being
right
to change.
Yeah, they change form. You're actually drinking Jesus's blood. That you're actually eating Jesus's body. Consubstantiation is that the transformation happens, but the bread remains the bread. It's both. Right?
Yeah.
So the wine is the wine and the blood. The bread is the body and the bread. And then there's the Calvinistic / Baptist point of view of communion, which is just memorial, which it's bread, it's wine, but it reminds us of the blood and the body of Jesus. And so the effect is essentially psychological, but it's a memorial of what Jesus did for us. It's not real substance material in any way.
Sure. So sorry that sidetracked us, but I think it is important. So, no such thing as an independent church. They're either Pentecostal or Baptist, even if not in name.
Yeah.
And I think, sort of one of the things that popped into my head when you were talking was, I know Baptist pastors who are way more Baptist than Christian. Like their identity is in being Baptist. Especially when I was part of the SBC, like I would meet pastors as I traveled around the country or at, the annual meeting, and even somewhat in New England, though less so here, because being Southern Baptist wins you no friends in Massachusetts, right? Who were so part of their Baptist heritage, like their conversion story, unlike yours, where you're like, I had nothing and then I met Jesus. Was much more like, I grew up in a Baptist church and then I believed Baptist doctrine and then I got baptized.
And I've known nothing else.
Yeah, and they would defend Baptist doctrine and Baptist practices fervently against other denominations, even not necessarily other denominations that are incredibly different in some ways, like Orthodox or Catholicism, but against Methodists, again, against any other denomination. Like they're the true, stream of Christianity. You can find a direct path from Peter down to Second Baptist on Main Street in Midtown America, where they were baptized, and like everyone else has it wrong. And so they would wear that badge of Baptist with pride more than I think they would wear. And they may disagree, but at least from my perspective, even when I was a Christian, I was like, wow, you're way too Baptist and way less Christian. If that makes sense.
Well, it makes me curious what you mean by Christian.
Sure, I guess. I guess then I would have said someone who like puts Jesus first in their life. So, has a private prayer life, maybe journals, meditates, leads their family to prayer, takes their family to church, regular church attenders and tithers, and not because that makes them better people, but because of the outflow of love that they have for Jesus. They're going to give back to his mission, who want to evangelize and see, the lost be saved, and who would say, like, Jesus is first in my heart, and sing cheesy Christian songs about it. I think now I would say almost the same thing, that it's people who, like, through word and deed put Jesus first. And I think some of these Baptists who I'm talking about, through word and deed, would put their denomination and their pet theology that their specific church taught is first, and say nothing else is true. Where I do think even when I was a Christian pastor in Reformed circles, I did think that Christianity was bigger than my theology. So, like we talked about, I think episode 1 or 2, where I had my evangelism professor from Southern Seminary saying his goal was to like get Catholics to be saved, meaning convert them to, Baptist theology. And me and my friend Patrick were in seminary class thinking about our other friend Tristan, who is a pretty devout Catholic and attended my Baptist church.
Hi, Tristan.
Hey. And we're like, no, like Tristan's a Christian. Like, we don't need to convert him. Like, we're really comfortable with the fact that he like loves Jesus and takes this faith thing really serious, and he doesn't have to be Baptist to do that.
Like, Jesus forms, and sorry to embarrass you, Tristan, but like, if you know him, he's all about Jesus.
Yeah,
Jesus.
and his wife and kids at this point too, but
which he funnels under the category of like, he raises his family the way he believes Jesus would have him raise his family. Like, his faith is fundamentally his identity, and so to refer to him not a Christian is quite a claim.
Yeah, I'd say asinine. He has a blog he sent me, and I meant this would have been a great time to plug it, but I don't remember the name off the top of my head.
No.
Although people
something about walls.
Yeah, people will get mad. I mean, people are already mad that, I'm giving you a platform and you're giving me a platform. And then if we add a Catholic into the mix, it's going to get really...
We talked about Catholics and Amish and Mormons and Druids. Everybody's welcome here.
Yeah. So, yeah, I had no idea where we were in this conversation. Oh, it's good. So yeah, boxes. So I think not only were people trying to figure out you, but people are also trying to figure out me. And I got more on Instagram, which is funny because we have like 7 followers on Instagram, where Facebook we have more. But I had a message about a typo in episode 3, and I thought it was the word exvangelical, which is definitely insider language. Like, I don't even think Christians would necessarily know it. Even not all atheists know it. It's...
You can sort of tell what it is, though, right? Exvangelical? Like,
it's someone who wasn't evangelical and is no more. And it typically refers to people who've lost their faith. So they're either agnostic or atheist. I don't think it would refer necessarily to someone who is an evangelical and converts to Amish. Like, right? Like, and that's what I thought the typo was, or what they assumed the typo was, and it wasn't. It was in their description. We talk about me being a church planter, and they thought like, no, you were a pastor.
Yeah.
So, and they were very gracious learning the new term and sent me some book recommendations, which is pretty cool.